And good afternoon. Welcome to another session of the 11th Annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment Virtual Conference. It's presented by Northeastern State University. And we have sessions that last through this Friday, the 14th, Valentine's Day. I'm Bob Hale. I'll be moderator for this session. Don't forget, as I've reminded you often, these sessions are closed captions. To view the captions, just click on the closed caption icon on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. Today's session is automated teaching and faculty work. What do we know and what should we do? We have from Michigan State University, Stephen Weiland, teaches courses in higher education, including the impact of technology on teaching and learning and scholarly communications. And from the University of Notre Dame, we have Robert Cazares, sort of, okay, who contributes to host of organizational and administrative activities, including many influenced by technological innovation. So this should be interesting. And let me turn it over to Robert and Stephen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Weiland. I'm at Michigan State. I teach in a graduate program in higher education. That's where Robert and I met. I should probably say up front that Robert and I approach this subject with some ambivalence. We like to say that we teach and work with and against technology at the same time. That is, we hope that we're productive skeptics about some features of the enormous powers now that ed tech and technology generally has on the university and on teaching and learning. I would say too that in the time between since we did this session at the Online Learning Consortium, we've both started to think a little more about the title, and it could be that a more accurate title might be AI or artificial intelligence and faculty work. Since one of the two examples we'll feature isn't precisely of teaching, and we all know how the enormous influence that AI is having in the culture generally. Automated teaching, of course, is actually a pretty old phenomenon in higher education without a digital component. That is, we're both thinking of the old teaching machines from the 50s and the 60s, which were an early form of automated teaching. But we're focusing entirely on very recent developments, depending on the internet and digitalization. We're going to divide the session according to the title. We'll talk a little about what we know. What we know comes from what we can observe and some experiments underway in AI and automation in higher education. Each of us will talk about one. I'll do a brief introduction, and then each of us will talk about an example, and then we'll turn to the what we can do part of it, and we'll leave 10 or 15 minutes for us to all talk about it. Of course, a lot of what we know about AI and faculty work reflects the broad general interest in artificial intelligence and automation in the culture generally. I'm sure you've all seen reports or accounts of reports in online sources or in the New York Times and other places about the current and, more importantly, the coming impact of artificial intelligence on work. Just about 10 days ago, the Times had another piece projecting what the consequences of the rapid growth of AI in the workplace are likely to be. For the last 5 or 10 years, there have been regular projections of the impact on different sectors of employment. Typically, forms of professional work, or sometimes called office work, and certainly teaching and other professions that have been based on human-to-human communication are ranked low as far as risk is concerned in the near term in relation to forms of office work and other occupations where there are repetitive physical movements. Those are the areas in which automation is very rapidly making headroads. But the Times piece featured a new development or a new way of thinking about automation. It actually suggests there may be analogs even in faculty work and in teaching and learning. The Times featured Amazon's Amazon Flex program, which allows Amazon to adopt the techniques of Uber and the other gig, what's called locations for the gig economy. That is, people who take short-term contracts to perform different tasks. And it's possible now. It occurred to us to think about the very high levels of contingency faculty work across the country as a form of the gig economy now. And if in fact more automation comes to higher education, it's likely to influence part-timers, specialists, those working on contracts more than it does what's often called the tenure stream faculty. Those are the faculty members who typically work in lower division courses. So it may be that there's more impact on traditional academic work than we think of right now if you think in the vocabulary of the gig economy. But though it's in the labor market that the influence of AI and automation has its biggest impact, potentially on what we prefer to call academic work, which includes not just the faculty teaching, but all the other things that take place on campus. And the first, we're going to feature two examples. One of the one from the service part of higher education, and the second one more directly the teaching part. So I want to begin with a brief account of what's called now the Jill Watson experiment at Georgia Tech. I'm sure a few of you have probably, maybe more than a few of you have heard of this unusual project in automating student advising. It was introduced in 2016 to be as part of the advising program at Georgia Tech's MS program in computer science. That's obviously, it's a good place in which to introduce automated advising. And what they did at Georgia Tech is write a program that allowed for an automated, that allowed for advising students in the program via a AI platform that would answer many, many kinds of questions that students typically had. The professors at Georgia Tech wrote the program, and it was astonishingly successful. But the reason it got so much attention a few years ago was that most of the students who were advised by quote unquote Jill Watson, who was the name given to the AI-based advisor at Georgia Tech, had no idea that they were talking to a bot or communicating with a bot. In fact, many of the students who were surveyed at the end of the semester gave her the highest ratings of any of the advisors that any of the students had talking to. This astonished the leaders of the Georgia Tech program, but it convinced them that they had found something really distinctive, unique. That is, that Georgia Tech employed 11 advisors for the hundreds of students who were enrolled in this novel online MA program. And in 2016, only one of them was automated. And most of the students couldn't tell any difference between their communications with the automated AI-based advisor. He couldn't tell any difference between that advisor and the actual human advisors. For obvious reasons, this was astonishing. And the program, this advising format, got enormous publicity in education journalism, on TV and radio shows, and everywhere. Since then, Georgia Tech has expanded the automated AI-based parts of it. So now they have 3 automated advisors. By now, of course, most of the Georgia Tech students know that some number of the advisors are actually AI. They're not actual human beings who they're communicating with back and forth on the computer, but they're not told who they are. And astonishingly still, in post-semester surveys, the AI advisors get very high marks, and many, many students can't tell the difference between them and the regular advisors. So this has caused quite a stir across a number of different potential areas of academic work in obviously advising and counseling. Now, on the face of it, it doesn't appear to be influencing academic work as such. But if you listen to the Georgia Tech faculty who devised the program, they see this development as an important part of academic work in the sense that they justify the moving towards automated advising as an important resource for the faculty. That is, it relieves the faculty of tasks that nominally at least interfere with with other work they could be doing with the students if they don't have to respond to routine questions. And the questions that come to the advising staff are about dates, about requirements, about criteria for grading papers, and so on. So if the faculty claimed there, or the leaders of the program claimed that they were getting hundreds and hundreds of questions throughout the semester, the vast percentage of which were pretty much the same from class to class. That's what allowed them to use, to probe the data and figure out a program that could answer the questions automatically. But they dressed up the AI with lots of other kinds of information so that the AI advisor could respond to things that the students said in ways that fooled the students into thinking that that it was really a human being who they were talking to. One example that's often cited is that one of the students said to Jill Watson, again, no such person, just the software, mentioned to Jill Watson that his wife was pregnant and due in 4 months. When Jill Watson responded to him with it was about a question about a deadline or something, she added, good luck on the addition to your family. The programming was sophisticated enough to allow her, to prompt her to say that. And it's a sign of how the limits of the programming, though, is when a male student said something about pregnancy without the noting the thing about, well, my wife is expecting, she couldn't respond at all because they had shown that the programming only showed women who being pregnant and not the men. So she didn't respond to that. But in any case, the genius behind her responses is that they programmed her to address every possible contingency. And according to Ashek Joel, who is the computer scientist, did this, she, with very rare exceptions, answered every question accurately. And to him, that's the genius of the program. She never makes a mistake. Maybe that's a sign of how well they did in mining the data and preparing for contingencies. But she says, Joel says that that's why they consider it a success. They had no plans for her. They didn't anticipate her presenting herself to the students as a real live person. But that's the way the students took it. What they were shooting for was accuracy. And anything beyond that was a big surprise to them. So the whole point behind doing this is not to replace staff at Georgia Tech, but as Joel says, to enhance the work of the faculty. He has another reason for continuing their experiments in automating this feature of academic work. He believes if they keep playing this out, it will contribute to the global expansion of higher education. And what he's looking for is scale and efficiency and more broad global use of the computer in all forms of education. And he thinks if we can do more and more automated online, obviously it could have that result. So he puts aside any questions about replacing the faculty with instructional bots of any kind. I wanted to read to you, though, one comment from one of the graduate students at Georgia Tech who recognized that Jill Watson never makes a mistake. But I thought this was a a very good insight into the limits of this particular feature of automation. And this is from Marissa Gonzalez, who's a PhD student at Georgia Tech. She says education is remember, she works in the program. Education is an environment where you want personalized attention, and you think there's no way an AI can provide that nuanced form of relationship. But this is what she says. I thought this was telling. Jill doesn't need to. She just needs to give the students the answers they need when they need them. That's undeniably true. And if we if we tailor expectations to that, these sorts of automated projects can succeed. Of course, if we're looking for more in advising, which is what we traditionally do, then we're going to find a system like this, no matter what the students think and how satisfying they find, that probably not up to the task. So this is one very popular experiment, a widely known experiment now in automating some features of higher education. We have a second one to turn to, and that's much closer to classroom teaching. I'm going to turn it over to Robert now to talk about the big national project in adaptive learning.
Sure, thank you. I just kind of want to add that we're certainly living in interesting times. I mean, the idea that of things that seemed like science fiction a few decades ago, either by their complexity or how big they were, their scope, are now really a reality. It's happening across the country, sometimes in small scales and sometimes in large. But what's really happening is these ideas that stem from the early teaching machines, so what Dr. Weiland said was 1950s and 60s, can now be realized. We've advanced enough in our technology where the ideas of artificial intelligence or teaching with a computer can now happen. Everyone carries around a microcomputer in their phones. Everyone owns a computer. Well, most everyone owns a computer, but really, we're there. We're there where we are allowing technology to enter most facets or almost every facet of our lives. And here we have in education it coming in, and really there are some things that we should be skeptical about. My job at Notre Dame as an analyst is to look at technologies and see how they fit within the institution. So benchmarking, and then really just kind of an impact analysis. I try to shy away from the financial piece, but sometimes it plays a role no matter what. But in teaching and learning specifically, I'd like to provide a broad account about a collection of technologies which have been grouped together under the term adaptive learning. Now, bear with me, the definition gets a little complicated, but adaptive learning is a form of personalized learning that uses technology. It takes a sophisticated, data-driven, and sometimes non-linear approach to instruction. It adjusts content based on each learner's interaction, so their background, their performance, their abilities. Breaking that down, it's really a computer system that takes inputs from instructors or other kind of knowledge holders. It organizes the content in a kind of a web-like manner. And then using information from the learner, it determines the appropriate starting point and path through this web-like content for the individual learner to learn most effectively. So it is personalized learning. Each individual has kind of their own map, their learning map down to the individual, and they get on these computers, and the system really just gets them to a learning outcome based on something that the professors or something that you want them to learn. It's really the automation of instruction using artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence, it's not a new term. It's been around for a long time, 1960s, military. It's really just the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. That is, being able to see. So like an automated car, being able to see around them, the surroundings. We have virtual reality. It's really as plain as just being intelligent like a human. In this case, kind of knowing what the content to provide the individual learner is based on information that is provided to a computer. It is, in fact, intelligent, maybe not as well as an instructor, but it is intelligent. It began in really, it's it's advanced into higher education. It started off in kind of the elementary education, the K-12. Really, in K-12, there's been a lot of work on just attempting ways or different ways which we can instruct students. But it's really here already in higher education. Schools like Georgia State University, Arizona State, and especially the University of Central Florida are already using this technology. The University of Central Florida is a very good example. They have thousands of students going through these programs, this program using adaptive learning, and they found success on their main criteria for using adaptive learning was accessibility, access, getting more students through. And they've really seen a lot of progress in that. If you're not aware, the University of Central Florida is the largest public institution in the country. It is 69,000 students, and they've been using this to kind of push students through with some success. The implications for faculty work can already be seen in these schools. And I studied the University of Central Florida closely. I mean, but before I dig into the kind of the University of Central Florida, I want to make a distinction between job and work. So job is a delivery driver, an accountant, a post-secondary instructor. Work are the individual responsibilities that make up a job. So what we're talking about is faculty work. There's really very little chance that the faculty job will ever change. If you're kind of more interested in that area, there's a website called willrobotstakemyjob.com. You can put in the kind of the title of the job description. It'll spit out the probability that robots or automation will take that job away. And post-secondary instructors fall in 3%, so very unlikely. It's based on a work of Frey and Osborne titled The Future of Employment, How Susceptible Are Jobs to Computerization? With adaptive learning, faculty are no longer the knowledge holders. The computers themselves, the system becomes the knowledge holder. It also is the delivery vehicle. So the faculty are no longer delivery vehicles. They're no longer the classroom facilitators. It's down to personalized. The whole system does all that. The work of faculty becomes loading the knowledge into the system, then guiding the students where necessary. So this is kind of front-end work, and it's very scalable. So we have one faculty member can input build this content and knowledge structure, and then just push it out to hundreds, if not thousands of students, which is really amazing. But there's also reasons to be cautious. The way that adaptive learning made its way into education was on this idea of lowering costs and improving quality or increasing access. Really, it was, I guess putting it another way, it would be financial accountability, quality control, scalability. And really those terms, putting them in with faculty instruction, they really don't combine very well. So asking faculty to be more fiscally responsible or control their quality and be more scalable really goes against kind of the idea of this traditional higher education where the professor leads the student and teaches them what they need to know. At the University of Central Florida, they've seen a lot of success, but they've also seen some pushback when it appears they went a little too far. In one of their courses, what they try to do is force or maybe mandate that students use this program, and it's called Realize It. That's the adaptive learning platform. And there was significant pushback from students who wanted to see the instructor. They didn't want to see the computer all the time. They wanted to see the instructor sometimes. So what we're seeing is maybe at this point in time, it can go too far, but that shouldn't be that could not be the case in the future. Like what we're seeing now is this, and these kind of neoliberal values coming into play to make adaptive learning better, and it's being pushed down by administration and really not with consideration on kind of the future of faculty work. And I guess at this point, I'll hand it back to Dr. Weiland.
Let me add a word or two about the term adaptive in the phrase adaptive learning. What's adaptive about it? It reflects what Robert referred to as the personalization of the course. That is, the software is built to respond to the individual performances of students. So students who go more slowly get certain kinds of assignments and resources. Students who are very adept at the work are moved along more quickly. And that's all done automatically. It's built into the program with the data collected from thousands and thousands of students who've taken the courses. So the instructor's role, which would typically have been, to the degree that an instructor can personalize the course, to have tailored relations with different students in different ways, presumably this can be done much, much more effectively by machines. And personalization is probably the number 1 rationale and justification for adaptive learning systems on the teaching and learning side. And it's often cited in arguments to introduce more and more adaptive learning into especially very large, lower division popular courses like Econ 101, Psych 101, the most popular courses in the country. And again, presumably students, if you favor this format, students are better served by having these personalized courses. Now, they are online courses in some ways, but this is a very different form of what might now be called traditional online education. To some degree, to some of you, they may sound like MOOCs in the sense that they're all online, but MOOCs are not personalized. There's no artificial intelligence in them. Everybody takes the same, pretty much takes the same course in MOOCs. What's distinctive about adaptive learning is the way every course is presumably adapted to the needs, interests, abilities, and prospects of individual students. And plainly, as Robert said, the faculty members themselves are, once the course is designed, have only a sort of marginal sort of facilitation role in this. Many, many students find them satisfying, but as he said, at Central Florida in the past several months, there's been some pushback by students who say they don't want all their courses to be this way, and they want to see more of the faculty more directly and in personal terms. Robert?
Dr. Wyland, I see a question come up. It says, how do you address requirement by the Department of Education for substantive interaction with adaptive learning? So I just going to quickly address that. Really the idea behind the National Education Technology Plan, which is the Department of Education's plan for the use of technology, pushes adaptive learning, but if we take it back down to what its intent is that personalized piece. What they're asking for is to provide personalization at a scale, and really, it is what they're asking as far as kind of the scalability and the way to increase access. But access has been kind of their main target. Adaptive learning hasn't shown that it will decrease costs or increase quality. So really what the kind of Department of Education is pushing for is this: students learn better with personalized learning. This is an opportunity for us to push personalized learning to a lot more people, and that's where that is coming from.
It's probably worth saying too that these are online courses. They are highly interactive in the sense that students interact with computers, if not directly with people. Before we turn to the sort of what should we do, I wanted to name one more very interesting example of now underway for automation. St. Thomas University, University of St. Thomas in the Twin Cities is the first to institutionalize a project in what they call sentiment analysis. And they're doing this with IBM software. And the way it works is cameras are placed at strategic positions in lecture halls, holding several hundred students. And the cameras rotate, and through facial recognition software, produce an analysis of the emotions students are experiencing as individual classes unfold. And the software claims to be able to recognize in facial expressions some satisfaction, anger, boredom, a host of emotions that students experience during a lecture. And it provides to the instructor at the front of the room a kind of a dashboard with graphs showing the percentages of each emotion as they are being felt by the students in real time. And the argument here is that this form of artificial intelligence can guide the instructor in the front of the room towards tailoring or adjusting or presenting resources in a way that is attentive to what students are actually feeling and thinking while the class is going on. So this is another, highly unusual, but perhaps unusual experiment, but a sign of what people are starting to devise for AI in real-time experiments in the classroom. Needless to say, a host of ethical questions have been asked about software that relies on facial recognition here, and whether St. Thomas can work out the potentially legal problems associated with this is unknown. But some of you may know the University of St. Thomas has a particularly aggressive Office of Technological Innovation, and they want to be in the vanguard in experimenting with AI actually in the face-to-face classroom, and with the sophistication of cameras and deep files showing with examples of emotions made visible by facial expressions. They believe they can do this. So anyway, we just wanted to give you a quick sense of sort of AI developments or developments in automation as they're influencing higher education now. And the second part of the presentation that we did is contemplate just what the faculty, what is the faculty doing, or what might the faculty do in the years ahead when faced with these developments. Right now, the Gates Foundation has sponsored a national project through the American Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities that groups together. It's 11 institutions. Forget the number. I think it's 10 or 11 institutions, all experimenting with adaptive learning projects on their campuses in several courses. The project is underway now. They've issued a couple of annual reports, and by and large, most of the campuses think they're succeeding, much the way Central Florida has been. It'll be another year or two before we have the results of and we discover whether it's possible to measure learning or describe it or to find anything of significance in this format. If it succeeds, and there are the cost savings that people claim it has, then we'll see it in other places. But that's another question up for dispute, whether in fact there are cost savings associated with doing this. If you're interested in the national project, just go to the APLU website, and there's a very deep, highly documented account of how that project is going. That's probably the best place to look right now.
It's called the Adaptive Learning Market Acceleration Program.
Yeah, at the APLU website. Hey, we wanted to make just 3 points about how the faculty is responding to this. In some cases, I mean, the faculty can embrace automation and AI, and you have in a lot of, on a number of campuses, certainly at the APLU institutions, there are many faculty members who are participating very enthusiastically in this project. Of course, they are, technology partisans to begin with, most of them, so they were looking for success of this kind. And again, it'll be another year or two before we know the results of this 4 or 5 year project. So embracing automation is one route. The opposite is also the case. You have as many people, probably more people who are skeptical about this than who are embracing it. In a way, this reflects the annual studies done by Inside Higher Ed and the old Sloan Babson group about faculty attitudes toward technology, where year after year, these national surveys show, though increases in faculty teaching online, a substantial majority of American faculty members are still skeptical about the success, fruitfulness of online teaching and learning. And that suggests that faced with prospects for automated learning, that number would probably go up because these automated projects are far beyond what traditional online teaching and learning is like. So there's plainly there's going to be a lot of skepticism about doing this. Some of it based on principles of teaching and learning. Some of it obviously reflecting some fear about employment down the line. A third tactic, though, is to simply observe. I'm fond of quoting a line from a political scientist at NYU who, looking at technology in higher education more generally, he actually favors more technology in the classroom to get over what he calls pedagogical drudgery. And he says that can only happen, as he puts it, if we can only get over our atavistic fear of outsourcing, is the term he used, which is the way some would describe what adaptive learning is all about. But his advice is our job is to ride the tiger and not get eaten by it. And I like this as a sign of, well, we got to watch, see what's happening, adjust as best we can. But he thinks it's fruitless to try to resist more and more larger and larger roles for technology in teaching and learning. I expect that some distribution of these attitudes is common among all of us here. So that's as far as we wanted to take the presentation. We've got about 10 minutes or so, or a little more, to have some comments and questions. So we'll turn it over to you now. We can wait.
Well, it's the end of the day for these folks, right? Maybe they're a little tired.
Okay.
Or they're just shy, though I don't think that's the case.
See, now here, one argument from those who promote more technology is that everyone would be less tired if they had less to do, and they outsourced more of academic roles to automation. So maybe there's something to this.
I think they'll just find more work for them to do somewhere. I think you can be doing more research.
That's always the case. Yeah. I expect what Robert just said is probably true, that this could the introduction of more automation into faculty roles as far as the sort of mainstream tenure track faculty is concerned, that this would be one more reason to ratchet up research requirements if in fact some features of the role were unbundled, as they say, and given over to, as they're called at Georgia Tech, virtual teaching assistants. We can all see the comment from Alan Heaps, somehow using more technology. Oh, okay, I lost it.
Somehow using more technology, especially in teaching, seems to require more work on our part.
Yeah, I think that's what some would. I think that's what some would say. But again, remember about there's a feature of the adaptive learning courses that reflects one advantage of online teaching and learning, and that is, you don't have to reinvent the course every semester from scratch. That there is some workplace advantages in online course design to the degree that you can stay with it over a period of time.
I also think that the more work is something to consider, but it's also different work. It requires us to be somewhat of a technologist to be able to deliver the courses through some of these adaptive learning or other platforms. It also means that we have to hire more of these course designers, or I don't remember what they're called.
Now they're more often called learning engineers.
There you go.
Yeah. It might also be worth noting that the courses being developed through these platforms at the different APLU institutions are a little different from the ones that have gotten a lot of recognition through Carnegie Mellon University, which has been doing courses like this for quite some time as part of what they call OLI at Carnegie Mellon, their online learning initiative. Those are courses, though, that have no instructors at all. The adaptive learning courses have instructors of record and faculty available to help students. The OLI courses are absolutely, completely, fully online. You don't have any sense of a teacher in the course. The adaptive learning courses are a little closer to traditional online courses in that way.
And I mean, they've also been focused on certain courses. So not all subjects can be put into the adaptive learning platforms. It's usually around something more prescriptive, like a math or a history.
Right.
Languages.
Languages have worked. And,
the more creative ones are really not there yet.
But the OLI courses at Carnegie Mellon are often held up as models for adaptive learning nationally. We should probably also mention, Robert referred to Realize It, which is a software company that works with Central Florida. There's an economic dimension to this also that's quite important. When the Gates Foundation made its grant to the APLU to organize this national project, it invited each of the campuses to sign a contract with a software provider. Most of them were startups, some with already pretty good records in the field. Two of the campuses are working with major publishers to provide the adaptive learning platform for the courses on their campus. And so in effect, what Gates was doing here was conducting a national competition to see who come up with the most effective adaptive learning software. And one important result of the national project will be to see if in fact one or two of these companies can produce the most efficient, cost-effective software that might become a national standard for doing adaptive learning courses. Now you can imagine that the financial stakes in this are very high then, and it's what's motivating these small startups to do absolutely the best they can in hopes that they might win, so to speak, this competition. The reason the publishers are involved is that they see in adaptive learning the natural evolution of the role of the textbook. That is, if McGraw-Hill, one of the developers, succeeds in this, the course becomes the textbook. So it's a very different idea of what a textbook would be then. And the major publishers see this as potentially the best format for developing their own business.
Publishers
So
just in the last month, I think Pearson bought Smart Sparrow, which is a kind of an adaptive learning platform. So these publishers are really getting in on this market.
And they have deep pockets.
They do.
So it's not inconceivable that at some point, and this is what they're thinking, and this, I think the Gates Foundation would welcome this, that some significant percentage of lower division courses in the country would be taught on these platforms held by major publishers. And the degree to which the faculty would continue to have roles in these would then become even more problematic, let's say. And to a degree, the faculty would be working for the publishers and not the institutions. So there's another way of estimating what the impact on faculty work might be like. So, other comments or questions? Expressions of fear, anxiety, or anything? Okay, well, don't invest in seminar tables. Okay, it's probably not a good idea right now. If your campus is anything like ours, we pretty much stopped building classroom buildings because we need very large halls for lectures, or we're assuming now that more and more of the curriculum will be online. Anyway, once it goes online, then you've set in motion the prospects for adaptive learning, especially if you're at a big institution like mine, which has thousands of students in lower division general education courses. And you can begin to see the temptations of operating this way. On the virtual teaching assistant side, I think that may happen more slowly here, if it happens at all, because we're actually growing in the resources putting into advising and the like. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll defer to Bob here if he wants to wrap up or.
Well, yeah, I think closure has washed up upon us for today.
Okay.
So,
Thank you all for
Robert,
participating.
it is really interesting. It's a good session to end today as well.
Okay.
And so I really appreciate it. And I think everybody here did.
Thank you all for
Thank you very much.
signing in. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
And everybody, don't forget, we got another day of sessions starting in the morning. Hope to see you all there.